Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 9 of Video Game Club, where every 2 weeks we play and discuss a game voted on by you, the people. It's kind of like discussing with your partner where to get dinner, except your choice matters. I'm Tyler, and I have with me today the man, the myth, the voice of the internet, Austin.
Hello.
How you doing, Austin?
I'm tired, but I am waking up for this stream.
That's good. And of course, it wouldn't be a video game club meeting without the amazing and wonderful Mox.
Hello.
How are you doing, Mox?
Great, how are you?
Good. And on episode 9, we have a very special guest coming all the way from the darkest, deepest depths of the internet, MrProg.
Hello.
MrProg, tell us a little bit about yourself, and please answer these 2 questions. What is your earliest gaming memory, and what is your current favorite game?
Certainly. Well, as far as context, I'm mainly just a guy who loves games and loves making a certain video game collection website that may be associated with a site Sudo's associated with, without dropping any names just in case. But yeah, that's where I come from. Earliest gaming memory, I think there's a lot of N64 games that pretty much started around, if you don't count the really flash PC game, but
Sure.
Probably Banjo-Tooie around like 4 years old, just constantly playing that. That was a good time.
Not Banjo-Kazooie?
I actually started on Tooie. I don't know why. I think my parents just bought that one first. I did end up playing Kazooie, but I always went back to Tooie. I don't know why. It just...
It's what you started with. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, actually.
I mean, it's a better game. Keep going.
Yeah, I think so. Then current favorite game so far, I would say Portal 2 all the way. It's just throwing the puzzle
Portal 2.
aspects,
Oh, yeah.
Nice, solid pick.
story. It's just so good. So good.
Yeah, it's a good one for sure. Okay, so before we get started, I just wanted to go over what the options were for this episode. They were Dead Space, Luigi's Mansion, and I'm Scared. The winner, of course, was Dead Space, but if you are wanting a different game, please join us over in the Bombchu Discord to cast your vote. You can find a link to the Bombchu Discord in the stream by typing !Bombchu or a link in the description of the video version. Now, besides Dead Space, what have you all been playing? Mox?
Final Fantasy XIV. There is nothing else in life besides Final Fantasy XIV.
What about Solaris? You're done?
I can't play 2 space games at the same time. You gotta separate it. Keep them separated.
Austin, what about you?
I have been playing a lot of Plants vs. Zombies, the original.
Whoa.
Why?
Yeah. That's a good question. When it first came out, I watched somebody else play it every once in a while when I was over at their place, and I was like, yeah, it looks fine, but it's just another tower defense game.
Mm-hmm.
And I just never tried it for some reason. And at some point, I was just scrolling through Facebook, nothing to do, I couldn't figure out what to do, and it was just like, hey, you could play this right in your browser. And I was just like, screw it, I'm super bored. I played a level or 2. And the next time I was just bored scrolling through, it was like, hey, play another level. I was like, yeah, why not? And so now I'm like into the 4th of 5 areas, I guess, 30 levels in, and I'm having a blast. It's really good.
The original does hold up.
Yeah, it does. That's funny that you say that, because I've also been playing Plants vs. Zombies as well.
What?
I'm serious. I've been on a big PopCap. Like, I've been playing Peggle and Plants vs. Zombies. And I finished Death Stranding recently. Prog, what
Is
have
that
you been
PopCap too?
No. No. Prog, what have you been
Pop a
playing?
cast in Norman Reedus' ass.
I've been playing a lot of Mario 64 in that collection that came out recently.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
One of those games I also played as a childhood, but never really got far in it. I just remember playing the same levels over and over again. So this time, determined to get through it all.
All 120 stars.
Maybe not all of them, but at least all the levels.
Right on.
Yeah, then a bunch of Overcooked. Yeah, that's fun.
Oh yeah, Overcooked's great.
Yeah.
It ruins relationships, but it's a good time.
worth it.
Yeah. But we're not here to talk about any of those games. We're here to talk about Dead Space, a third-person survival horror game. It initially came out on October 13th, 2008, and then it was released on the consoles. And then 1 week later, it came to the PC. So what was going on in 2008? Burnout Paradise, Super Smash Brothers Brawl, Grand Theft Auto 4, Metal Gear Solid 4, Battlefield Bad Company, Fable 2, Gears 2, Left 4 Dead, Fallout 3, and one, what some might call a hidden gem, Pixel Junk Monsters. Came out in 2008.
Damn.
Yeah. It's a pretty good year for games. Like GTA 4, I remember, was a huge deal at the time.
Oh, yeah.
Left 4 Dead, of course.
Metal
Fallout
Gear
3.
Solid 4. So good.
Yeah. Prog, do you play any of these games?
Yeah, no, I was about to say, I have not played many of these at all.
Oh, dang.
I guess, for me, it seems like it was more of a taking a break year after 2007, which is a lot of ones I have played from there.
Yeah. 2008, I mean, you should definitely go back, especially like GTA 4, I feel like still holds up. Left 4 Dead 1.
Oh, that's true. Left 4 Dead.
It's a good game. Dead Space was developed by EA Redwood Shores, which was renamed into Visceral Games. They're based in Redwood City, California. How original. And it was published by Electronic Arts. And the engine for the game was I believe it was an in-house engine, from what I read, that was modified, that they used for other games that they made, such as The Godfather and Tiger Woods.
Wow.
Which is really interesting.
What universe do we live in that Dead Space, The Godfather, and Tiger Woods all have like something in common?
This one, clearly. So that's just a little general overview of Dead Space. Let's dive into the history a bit here. So, like I mentioned before, it was made by developed by EA Redwood Shores, which was founded in 1998. The studio before Dead Space was mainly focused on licensed games, such as like the Tiger Woods PGA Tour games, some of the 007 like Agent Under Fire, and the other ones that came out after that.
Like Nightfire, maybe?
I don't think I read Nightfire.
Okay.
But I did play Nightfire. It's pretty good. I also played Agent Under Fire. I liked it. They made the Lord of the Rings games like Return of the King and The Third Age, which was like an RPG game, which I think is really good.
I played those movie Lord of the Rings games, and those were surprisingly good for their time.
Oh, yeah. Return of the King especially was super good. The Godfather as well. And then they made this game that you guys may know called Dante's Inferno.
Oh, yes!
I didn't know they made that.
Yeah, that came after Dead Space.
Okay.
But yes, and then obviously Dead Space. So, as you know, they were mainly working on these licensed games, and they went to EA, and they were trying to convince the bigwigs that, like, hey, we want to make like System Shock 3. Essentially, was what they were like kind of trying to pitch. Then a bomb dropped, which was Resident Evil 4. Have you guys played Resident Evil 4? Starting with Mox. Have you played it?
No, I can't play these games. I don't know. This month is the worst month. No.
Austin, have you played RE4?
Oh, yeah.
Prog, have you?
No, I'm in the same boat. I cannot play these scary games for the life of me.
Oh. All right. Well, RE4 was very successful at the time, and I mean, it's still like people love that game. It's some people's like favorite game. But because of how successful RE4 was, they were able to convince EA to fund a new IP, which we know as Dead Space. And Dead Space was pretty successful, so it allowed them to become Visceral Games, kind of like, you know, separate them out, right, from just like a, hey, we make licensed game studio. And sadly, they would get dissolved and merged into EA Vancouver and EA Montreal in 2017. The last known project that we know that they were working on was a project called Project Ragtag, which was a third-person action-adventure game set in the Star Wars universe. And it was sadly canceled and probably will never see the light of day, which is really sad. Now, games get canceled all the time, but I mean, this sounded really cool, so it sucks.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to Dead Space. So Dead Space was the creation. I mean, it was the creation of a lot of people. It was a big passion project for a lot of people. But Glenn Schofield is the main guy, and he's an interesting guy. So he was actually like, he's been in games for a very, very long time. Today he works at PUBG Corp, and he is working on the story content. They want to have like some story content in PUBG, and he's working on that, which is interesting. But he's like worked on like Modern Warfare 3, Call of Duty World War 2, and one of my all-time favorite games, Gex 3D Enter the Gecko.
Nice.
So I just thought that was really interesting.
He also worked on some Barbie games.
Yeah, he has. His goal with Dead Space was to make the most frightening horror game possible. And he drew a lot of influence from things like Resident Evil, like we already mentioned, Silent Hill, System Shock 1 and 2, and also some movies such as Event Horizon, Martyrs, Alien. And I'm sure you guys probably witnessed some of that while playing the game, especially if you are familiar with like Event Horizon. Like the whole time I was playing, my girlfriend was just like, "Oh, this looks like it's like Event Horizon," and it's like, "Yeah, it is." And I didn't even know it was like an inspiration at that time. And then like I looked it up, and sure enough, in order to like guide the team on making this project, Schofield was like, "Hey guys, we're making Resident Evil, but in space," and that was kind of like their North Star. That the team was going to follow with this project. The team saw Dead Space as a really big opportunity to become like a proper studio instead of a studio that just makes licensed games. Not that there's anything wrong with making licensed games, but like to have like their own IP and something they can like iterate on and be known for. And so there was a lot of like passion behind that. The game was named Rancid Moon when it was,
what a name.
When it was,
it makes sense with the lore.
Yeah. In 2006, they pitched the game to EA, and then they were given 3 months to create a prototype. And instead of making the prototype on the new hardware, they made it on the OG Xbox. Which also, I think you told me whenever, like earlier this week about that. Yeah. The team built 11 levels after that prototype in just 10 months, which is crazy. The game engine, like we mentioned before, was like a version of like the same engine that they've used for Godfather and Tiger Woods. They combined that with the Havoc physics engine as well. During development, there's a lot of like things that were going on. So like one of the things was they were constantly tuning and balancing resource management, like constantly, and like while they were making this game. Did you guys like witness any problems with resource management when playing?
Do you mean like resources that you have in the game, or like resources the computer uses while playing the game?
Resources in the game.
Oh.
I felt like that was very well balanced my first playthrough, which was 12 years ago. That's crazy to think about. Where I was constantly either I had too much stuff in my inventory and I was having to leave stuff behind, which was stressing me out, or I was having to juggle ammo between, do I use this space for med kits because I keep getting hit, or do I use ammo because everything's taking a lot of shots to kill? And so it was just the right amount of tension, but I was never like screwed where I just didn't have the items that I needed to progress.
Yeah.
And this time when I played it, I just had too much of everything, which was weird. But I think that was just from kind of knowing how to play already and focusing a bit on. I'll get more into that later, but yeah, I never had a point where I was kind of wondering at several points, like, could I screw myself to have no way out somehow?
I'll be able to answer that question for you actually later.
Okay.
Because I reached a part where I was pretty screwed, and I can go into that. The other thing is the mouse and keyboard controls were really fine-tuned. They wanted it to feel just as good as playing with a controller as playing with mouse and keyboard. Immersion was like a huge focus of the game, which you can see with like just the HUD alone, right? Like the way that the health shows up, your stasis, the ammo, everything. Like there's no HUD essentially.
Your inventory, your map, the waypointing, and the HUD's also super attractive. Like when they first showed off Dead Space and Game Informer, and you could just see Isaac's back. Like the suit looked super cool, but that health on his back was just something about that was just super cool.
Yeah. I loved it. Like you can always tell how much health you have, but it's not like, I don't know how to explain it, but it just like, it's sexy for sure. During development, there was a 2-player co-op mode that was prototyped, but was actually scrapped. The game has like some procedural elements in it. So for example, like the necromorphs, they come from vents and they're not going to come from the same vent every single time. So they could have maybe they'll come from the floor or the ceiling. Like it's going to pick one at random for them to show up, which allows for the game to not be predictable, which was one of the big things that they were going for. One part of the development that stalled development for a month was this large tentacle that comes out that drags you. It took them a really long time to get that scene to work perfectly, because their goal was to make everything interactive and not have cutscenes, and make everything was you were always moving, you weren't just watching something essentially. And it took them a long time, but they were able to do it. The Glenn Schofield talks about this layer development that they used during that to help, and that they still use that today.
It's funny that you mentioned that they wanted the game to be smooth, because the speed runs for it have you delete a whole bunch of files in the directory because of all of the cutscenes, quote unquote, that you have to listen to that stall the game. And this is the only game I've seen that they have you do that as the standard speed run. So that's funny.
That's interesting. Yeah, but besides that, they were really focused on jump scares on earlier builds, and they've kind of thinned that out over time.
I disagree.
That's what they say.
Just imagine how much worse it could have been.
Oh.
Yeah. I feel like it was pretty reasonable for jump scares, but I don't know. The original setting was actually supposed to be that you were in a prison in space and you were escaping. Of course, they only kept the space element of that. And of course, the whole time during development, EA, being the people that they are, were pushing for sales, budget, etc. And Sheffield was very adamant on pushing for quality, which I think you can really tell in this game.
Yeah.
So a little bit more on Dead Space. So it was announced in 2007. In 2008, there was started to be a public website with marketing material on it. It got actually a large amount of support from EA on the marketing side. And as you guys know, it was received really well, 8s and 9s. The only thing that was really criticized was the storyline. It got a really mixed reaction because people found it derivative and some parts were poorly written.
Oh.
But on the other side of that, several critics consider Dead Space one of the greatest games of all time. It was the only new IP to enter the NPD top 10. So the NPD is these are the top 10 selling games, and they say how many units. It's interesting because now the NPD is not as accurate because a lot of stuff is bought digitally and they do mainly physical units. But back then, of course, people were buying physical games a lot more than they are today. And it was the only new IP to make it to the top 10 in that month. In October, it sold 193,000 units in 2008, which is when it came out. By December, it sold almost 500,000. And then February of that next year, it sold 1 million units. Sadly, though, despite that, EA still considered it a disappointment commercially. And as we know, it won and were nominated for several awards around sound design and animation. So yeah, that's a bit about Dead Space. Is there anything you guys want to add about just the history of the game that I may have missed? Or the studio?
It sounds like we didn't talk about the sound design. It won, or it was nominated for awards for sound design. I could see that. It felt like a horror movie throughout the whole thing. There were building elements when I was supposed to get really scared, and screaming elements when it was a jump scare, of which there were probably 20,000 of. So I don't know why they say they tried to cut out jump scares. Whatever. I'm not surprised. That's awesome.
I feel like you got trolled. You got like this super spooky version.
Things coming out of the ceiling is a jump scare to me. How is that not a jump scare?
Yeah,
I think once you hit a certain point in the game, you kind of expect something to come out of the ceiling.
Yeah. There's a lot of expectations. Like every time I open a door, I was like, okay, there's going to be someone here. Oh, this is a good opportunity for something to come behind me. I'll turn around.
So startling.
Yeah,
anyway,
sorry. There's like a ton of stuff about this game, and a lot of detail that we could have gone into. Like, there's like a bunch of stuff around the sound, and like it's been documented really well. There's a lot of like interviews and stuff about it. Obviously, it was successful enough that they went on to make sequels to the game with Dead Space 2 and 3, with 2 people mostly enjoying and 3 people hating for the most part.
Yeah.
But yeah. Okay, so let's turn on the old spoiler tag here and let's talk about the story. I'll start going bit by bit, and please stop me if you're like, and then this happened, or, oh, you forgot this. So the year was 2508, and humans were spreading out into the universe due to Earth being drained of all its resources. Then, and so ships were being used to mine what people assumed to be barren planets for their resources. You play as Isaac, an engineer who is trying to find out what has happened with his partner, Nicole. Nicole was a senior medical officer on a ship that was mining a planet. The ship's called the USG Ishimura.
Which was a planet cracker.
Yep.
Like the flagship one.
Yep. You arrive with 2 other people, well, and a crew, but 2 people, like named people, Kendra and Hammond. Unfortunately, whenever you're flying in, there's some issue that happens and you like kind of crash land onto Shimura. You find out very soon that not all is fine. There's these things called necromorphs. They end up killing everyone on your ship except you, Kendra, and Hammond. You as Isaac, you navigate the Ishimura to restore the systems and find parts to make an escape because you want to leave because something is clearly not right here. You almost succeed, but then the ship that you were going to leave on, which is the same one you got like arrived on, it gets destroyed. Do you remember like how it gets destroyed? I honestly don't remember.
I remember I walked onto the ship to do whatever I needed to do, and then a necromorph popped onto the windshield and started crawling around the outside. And I guess it did hit something sensitive or something like that, but I think it ended up exploding.
Yeah, I think it's just assumed that necromorphs want you to or something. I don't know.
Wasn't it deliberate or not? I can't remember.
It was already a crash, so maybe it just took an extra beat to finally explode.
It wasn't a major plot point.
No, it wasn't. Yeah. So shortly after that happens, the survivors, like yourself and Hammond and others, like begin to have like your symptoms escalate of like psychosis and dementia, ranging from like hallucinations to paranoia. Initially, like you get kind of like some of that. You're like getting like a small taste, but like it like starts to escalate like the more you progress in the story. Would you agree with that, Austin and Prague?
Oh yeah.
Why did they say dementia? What? Because dementia is like, I don't know. Why did they say the word?
I'm just reading the words. All right.
Okay.
Take it up with the commission. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, you start to hear whispering constantly. Like anytime that there's not monsters around, you're hearing people talking or whispering in your ears or singing.
It's not
sounds like in the next room.
The singing is.
I'm not saying if it's dementia or not, but just kind of what you start experiencing as you get further and further into the game.
Totally unrelated to the game. Schizophrenia used to be called dementia praecox, but that's kind of like a racist term almost. Not racist, just antiquated. So it's funny they use the word dementia. That's why I took issue with it. Anyway, it has nothing to do with the game. Or does it? It doesn't.
Or
Keep going.
Okay, so during your exploration, you pick up audio logs and video logs, which help you piece together what happened before. You learn that the Ishimura is doing an illegal mining operation for this church of unitology, and they believe that this object called the red marker is sacred, and the marker causes all sorts of problems. It wipes out like the whole colony that's on the planet. I think the planet's called like Aegis something.
7.
Aegis 7, that sounds right, yeah. You find 2 survivors. One who basically abandoned his belief of the church, and he's done with it and he wants to help you. And then another one who like worships the necromorphs and thinks that like they're like descendants of humans and are amazing and stuff like that. Hammond dies by a necromorph.
Brutal.
Yeah.
It was brutal.
And you can't prevent that at all. There's nothing you can do. And the story progresses. Isaac returns the red marker to the planet. Kendra then reveals who's still alive, that she works for the Earth government, and this Earth government agency, I guess it's like the federal government, but on like a huge Earth level. She tells Isaac that the marker is causing him to see Nicole, and that the marker is like manipulating him to return the marker to this thing called the hive mind. And you learn that this message that you've been watching about Nicole, which is like the last message that you have of her, and like why you're going on this trip, like one of the reasons, you learn that like she kills herself in the video.
Had killed herself.
Yeah, had killed herself in that video. And so that's
like
when
prior
you're
to making the like she made a video of her suicide, but you didn't get that video. You got something of her talking.
Well, you got like
eventually.
beginning of it.
Everything up until the last few seconds,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. For some reason, that also like is kind of weird.
Yeah.
Like, why do you only have this cut version of this video?
Well, I think you assume that like systems, failed.
Yeah. But who was protecting you? That's the thing. Like, why are they? I guess because they need you to go here.
Well, I wanted to clarify. So it was like there's like a triple like agent, and it gets a little annoying because first the planet, they had put the red marker there, years and years ago. And then they black marked it saying like, nobody can go to this planet, it's off limits. And then this like megacorp on Earth was like, no, that planet has a lot of resources, let's go there. And then the church like infiltrated that, this megacorp sending the planet cracker there.
Yeah,
and then,
they made sure that they had the entire ship was full of people who were unitologists, and it was crazy hearing that audio log. Sorry, go on, Max.
Well, no, it's just like it's a little complicated, a little contrived, but I liked the idea of it. But and then and then all this stuff happens, like you said, and then what's her name, the agent that's on your
Kendra.
ship? Yeah, she's like a triple agent or whatever, manipulating you, and then manipulating you again.
Well, even from the start, like she's constantly questioning Hammond and making there's this question of, okay, is Hammond, did he bring us here on purpose? Like, and what's going on? And so she's constantly trying to put other people in doubt.
Yeah. And you're like, is he the bad one actually? Like, is he the one, who should you trust?
Right.
That you kind of have that little dilemma as well. I didn't actually, I was bad and did not listen to, I listened to the audio logs, but they also had like text logs as well.
Yeah.
I didn't really read many of those.
My God.
Yeah. I almost never do that. It's like, it's not for me.
How would you rather receive like the lore of the game?
Audio log. Listening to it or being forced to watch it. And even then, if it's like something like from Kojima, you still won't understand, even if you're forced to watch like a 2 hour.
I was just going to reference Metal Gear Solid, how Revolver Ocelot is also like a triple agent, and that annoyed me. So I got triggered.
Okay, back to Dead Space. So Kendra ends up getting killed by the hive mind. You end up killing the hive mind, and then you escaped. And then as you're escaping, at the end, you see this cutscene where you're attacked by what appears to be a hallucination of Nicole, the girl that you were there for.
I hated that.
I also hated that. How did you interpret that, Austin?
Like you said, it's a hallucination. It reminded me of a movie. I won't say which movie ended that way, but it was a movie that it was a new ending that had to be created because the studio that was backing it was just like, well, audiences aren't going to get this ending, so put in an ending where it's a jump scare, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I have to wonder if EA insisted on that. But at the same time, it's like, I'm glad that it's clearly a hallucination.
Yeah.
So it's better. It's not just like, oh, there was a monster there the whole time. Screw you, Isaac. Haha. But it did feel like a weak way to end it.
Yeah, I also was not that. I also thought it was pretty weak. Prog, how did you interpret that part of it, or did you like it?
Yeah.
Or?
It was Nicole, right? That's what.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I took it as like got a sequel coming. Here's still something. Here's like, now he's gonna have these kind of mental or like effects from it. It's just one more scare because it's a.
Yeah, one more scare. Yeah.
I think it could have been cool if it was just Nicole seemingly normal.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, they didn't.
Or he's just instead of like a scare version of her.
Yeah,
because then it's just like, okay, well, she's been dead, so like
the whole
it's kind of this bittersweet. Yeah, it's a little bittersweet. Like, oh, he's hallucinating her, but it's not real. Also, oh god.
Yeah. Have you guys played the second one?
Yes.
Mox, I'm gonna go with you.
No,
probably.
obviously not. I didn't even play this one, you guys. I didn't play it. I read it and watched it.
Gonna have to kick you off.
No, I have to be here to represent the lore because you guys obviously didn't take it in at all.
I'm actually very glad that I asked for you to jump in on here because you pay a lot more attention to the lore for stuff that we miss.
Well,
I try to pay attention
always.
to story stuff, but
because
once I see text logs, I just
someone
glaze over.
100% of the time someone's made a Wikipedia and I just go and read every single page on the Wikipedia.
And I love that because I get to learn stuff that I wouldn't have otherwise. Sometimes I'll be playing a game and I'm like, damn, I wish we were doing this for Game Club. So I'm sure Mox would be able to answer this question I have about it.
That's awesome. Prog, have you played the second one?
I played like the first 2 chapters years ago, but never further than.
Yeah, I haven't played it, but I want to play it now since I've played.
Yeah, same.
For the story or because of the gameplay?
Just because the game, I really, really liked it. Which, before I take the spoilers tag off, do you guys have any spoilery stuff you want to talk about before I take it off, so we can hop into?
I wanted to talk about the overall arching story between the 3 games, but if you guys are going to play the other ones, I won't.
Oh, please don't. Don't.
It's a cool story. I like it. I was like, when I first started the game and I'd heard of the game, I was like, oh, zombies on a space station, yawn. But then going through all this garbage on the wiki, I'm like, whoa, someone put a lot of thought into this.
Garbage.
There's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot of deep lore, and they even beyond the 3 main games, they tried to make it kind of into like a bigger franchise, like a multimedia franchise.
There were 2 other. Were they games?
A couple of spin-off games.
Okay.
Yeah, they had like a mobile game, and then they had this weird. They had like an on-rails shooter for the Wii, and they had a collection of mini games on the 360 that had like other. And it might have been on PS3 as well. It probably was, but it had some like story elements to it. They had an animated movie.
Yeah, they had 2.
Wow.
Oh, did they have 2? Jeez. They probably had comics or something, but they really, none of it really matched up to the original. I heard good things about the rail shooter on the Wii, but
shooters.
I didn't ever get to try it.
It reminds me a bit of the story of Mass Effect, and I wonder if I don't know the premise. I don't know what the history of Mass Effect was in terms of the story, but it seemed like one happened, they'd be like, wow, people really like this. And they were like, we got to make more games. So they added more things to it. It seems that way with Dead Space. The first game has enough to be just like done within itself, but then they just progressively like add more layers and layers of lore that overcomplicates everything. Like as they're like, oh, we need more stuff. So I wonder if that's similar, or if someone like sat down and was like, we need 3 games and this is what each one's gonna have. I would like to know that. That's it. That's all I have.
I will say for 2, like this isn't a spoiler. It's like straight up from the beginning, and I mean, Isaac's gone nuts by the end of Dead Space 1.
Yeah,
they really lay into Isaac being crazy in 2. And one of my favorite things to do in there is if you just spam the stomp button, because if you stomp a few times and just keep stomping, he just starts yelling stuff. Oh my god, it's it's really good.
I love the stomping. It was really satisfying.
Yeah,
it was. All right, I am turning off the spoiler tag. So let's go into our personal takes.
Start with me because I didn't play the game.
I am going to start with you, Max.
Great.
So we can all shame you.
It was awful. I paid however many dollars I had to get the stupid like EA, paid service thing. I don't even remember what it's called. Did it for 1 month, and I downloaded a bunch of games, tried to play Dead Space. There's a jump scare every 5 seconds. I couldn't handle it. So I was like, all right, I need to somehow make this game easier. And so I downloaded someone's save file where they had beaten the game twice on the hardest difficulty. I think it's insane. And you can that one, yes. And you can restart the game every time you beat it, and they let you keep things, and then you can do new game and then new game plus. So I had all that stuff, but it makes you restart the game in that same difficulty. So I had to get a hexadecimal editor to change the difficulty of the file I downloaded to easy. So I'm walking into the easy mode of this game, like a technical first playthrough, with 2 playthroughs worth of junk on the insane difficulty. I'm sorry, it's impossible. I can't remember.
That's okay.
And one hit kills everything. I have infinite health. You guys were talking about resource management. I'm like, what resources? There's everything I need. And I just can't handle it. I got through like part of the game, and I'm literally just like, I shoot every single vent as I see it, and still something startles me. I don't know why anyone wants to play this game. I'm even watching like a speed run, and like something pops out in the background, and he's like, the speedrunner's like seen this 20,000 times, and like probably saying like, oh, something's gonna pop out in 3, 2, 1, and like I don't know how you deal with it. It's still startling. So they just moves in the background, and I'm just like, what? I don't know how anyone plays these games. They suck. So I didn't get through it. I read everything on the lore, which I really like. I like the lore. I wish I could watch like some weird, I don't know, even like people who cut out gameplay to make like Games the movie. They're still too scary. But anyway, so I tried watching a speed run where like the guy like doesn't even look at anything because he's just like, getting through everything really fast. I do like the speed run though, because there's a cool glitch they use a couple times in the zero gravity sections where you do your favorite little weird punching, stomping, melee action like 1,000 times. And then it kind of tilts Isaac's camera a little bit because of the nature of how the zero gravity sections work, which you can like jump up and then, land on a different plane. And so you can constantly change your plane. So you change your own plane, but then you move to an area that doesn't necessarily have 0G, but you maintain your weird tilted plane. So you're walking around, it looks like everything's on a slope. And Isaac interacts with everything as if it's on a slope. So he can walk over like things that are normally too tall for him to walk over. So you can like skip entire sections. And then there's another one where like the tentacle scene you were talking about that took them ages to code or whatever.
Yeah.
Like the tentacle, if you position yourself the right way, the tentacle will grab you, and then it like holds you in a weird way, and then you just kind of slowly ascend through the ceiling, and then you can just like no clip for the rest of the game. Anyway, so there are some cool glitches, but for the most part, there aren't any glitches in the speedrun. Just kind of walking through, and you just know where everything is, so you shoot it, except for like, like you're saying, the procedural stuff. So anyway, I don't have a rating for this game because I didn't play it, so you go ahead now.
Boo. Prog?
Yeah, so is this like an overall kind of
Yeah, just
feeling?
give a quick take, what you liked, what you didn't like, without spoiling it.
Yeah. So, I mean, overall, I don't typically like these kind of games, but I think because of this, it felt more of an action game with a horror coat of paint. It's like I can fight back. I'm not just hiding behind, which I think changed it for me. And I don't know if it's definitely not a bad looking game, but it is over a decade old, so that might have something where it just didn't feel as like spooky, I guess. I'm not sure. I also played on a TV, so being away from the screen versus sitting right in front of it. So I did end up switching over to a monitor at one point, then I had to readjust for that chapter because everything kind of felt like a whole nother level of.
Did you play on PC?
Yeah, so it was PC for both cases.
Okay.
So that's another thing. The PC port, I don't know. You mentioned how they like spend extra time on the mouse controls, but
yeah,
I couldn't. It felt super accelerated or something.
One of the top Steam guides is how to fix the bad mouse controls. Because the mouse is very weird.
Even I went to a controller, and I don't know if it's just the port for the PC, but it took me a good 30 minutes just to get it set up right. The dead zones were weird, and it just it was strange. But that's on a technicality level. As a game as a whole, I really enjoyed it more than I thought I would. And just the whole, it's not just shooting them. You have to like sever their limbs, which is a really cool mechanic that I haven't really seen before. Still not. And then the story, as a general sense, I think got a bit repetitive, but it was still had some really interesting themes that, I just like to go back into. And it's one of those games where I do go to the wiki afterwards and kind of try to read everything I miss, just because I'm so interested in it. And I don't like reading the text in game, but it is fun to go back afterwards. And
there's a lot on the wiki.
Yeah, there is a lot on the wiki. So it's really cool to kind of dive deep into it for anything I missed.
What would you give it on a 10-point scale, on the Prog 10-point scale?
Yeah, the official Prog 10-point scale. I think this deserves an 8.
An 8.
Maybe due to the little bit length, kind of repetitive nature, take it down, and kind of the bad port kind of suffered for me a bit. But
what about you, Austin?
I loved this game. I had played this, like I said, 12 years ago. I have not played it since. And I didn't really know how it was going to age. My first time playing through it, I had equal parts fun and terror. I think I had a little bit more terror than I was just having a lot of fun. But it was a fun game for me. And usually I have a hard time with horror games because it's most often survival horror. Or something that you can't fight back against. Or if you can only kind of weaken it and then have to run away.
Like Soma? Jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so being able to fight back, and I guess, so Resident Evil 4 I know was the inspiration. I always had trouble in there because anytime I wanted to shoot something, I had to stop and make myself vulnerable.
Yes.
And that was actually one of the things that they decided to change it in here is you could move while you're aiming, which was great.
You can actually run backwards.
Yes, which is awesome.
Like back step like at a normal pace and then back step like with sprint.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I hadn't tried that.
Yeah, I didn't find that out until like the end of the game, and I was like, "What? I could have been doing this whole time, like backward sprinting? Like what?" Yeah.
The limb cutting mechanic was really cool, and they had some great weapons built around that. Weapons and enemies. So enemies had interesting limbs that would stick out that were satisfying to try and cut. The plasma cutter being your first weapon was great.
Yeah,
it was just built for that, to where, especially with every weapon has an alt fire, and the way the plasma cutter works is instead of shooting bullets, you shoot kind of a beam that has width, and so you can press the alt fire to make it go horizontal or vertical, and so you can, if something has a tentacle that's going up instead of left and right, then you can flip that, and it's really satisfying to chop limbs. The line gun was the other favorite of mine because imagine the plasma cutter, but it's super wide and very powerful.
Can you tell me what the alternate fire did for that one?
that one's a timed mine. I never used that.
Okay.
It could be useful in some situations, but it takes too long for it to blow up, and a lot. By the time you could get used to using it, most of the stuff's too fast to use it on anyways. I guess you could use it with stasis, but
yeah, that never worked.
But man, the line gun, you could chop off 2 limbs at once with one shot. It's great.
Yeah.
There was a time in my life when I was just like really down. I think my girlfriend had dumped me. I had just been part of a robbery at my job, which sucked. And I was just in a horrible mood, and I went home and I started up a new game plus file on Dead Space, and using my fully powered line gun on early enemies in that game was just so cathartic. I will never forget that feeling. The tentacle scene that you were talking about that they spent a month on, and it's like 40 seconds long.
There's multiple though in the game.
Yeah, it happens again later, but I think they were able to just kind of reuse most of what they had done.
Yeah.
It's funny that they were like, we did all that for a 40-second scene, but anytime that I would think about Dead Space after I had played that, like for the last 12 years, anytime I've thought about it, that's the first scene that comes to my head. Because I remember it terrifying me that first time. And after it happened the first time, every time I was going down a hallway, I was just like, what the hell could be down this way? Like, if that tentacle grabbed me there, what's going to be down this hallway? And I was scared of something like that happening for the rest of the game.
Yeah.
Oh man. I'd say I really like horror, and I struggle with horror games a lot, like I said earlier, because you can't fight back, and so there's something really awesome about having something that terrifies you and being able to fight that thing, to conquer that fear, and to have it be done in such a fun way was really cool. I agree the story did get kind of drawn out a bit. They would send you on a fetch quest, and you go grab the stuff, and they go, oh no, it didn't work, go get something else. That was like a full chapter.
Go to the train again. Go to the train again.
Yeah.
Go to the train again. Yeah.
And so from a story perspective, I agree, but in terms of the story length serving the gameplay, like there was never a point where I was not having fun doing what I was doing on those chapters. I will say this time that when I played, I knew what weapons I wanted to use, which were the plasma cutter, the line gun, and occasionally the pulse rifle or the assault rifle. And in doing that, I would only find ammo for those weapons.
Yep.
And so if you don't buy, I just never bought the other weapons this time, because I'd used them before, and I just found them to be useless. And so if you have them, like, go get ammo for them, right?
Yeah.
At that point, you have to juggle the ammo and then go sell it off if you don't want to use it.
Yeah, I ran into that.
But I was able to just focus all my power nodes on the weapons I wanted. I knew what upgrades I wanted. It was like, okay, I don't care at all about the timed mines. I'm not going to upgrade those at all. I went straight for damage. So I was able to kill. At some point, they introduce stronger versions of the enemies that take more shots to kill. And it was like, okay, well, I've upgraded my damage enough. I can kill these in a couple of shots, and it's no problem. So by the end of the game, I had 150,000 credits. I had 50 items in my store, that in my vault. There was like stacks of large med kits, and like I had to scroll through a few pages to get past my med kits, which was just ridiculous because I wasn't selling anything. I didn't need to.
Yeah.
Versus my first time playing, I was constantly just like, oh man, I need to sell this off so I can get line racks. I'm not going to have enough to fight this guy. Oh my God, what do I do?
Yeah.
It was a little more tense, but I think having everything be part of the game was really cool. All the interface was part of the game. So if you're trying to manage your inventory, something can be walking up behind you and whack you. Like if you're running out of stasis and you need to use a stasis pack, you gotta open it up and fiddle with it. And, oh my God, I gotta grab my oxygen tank, and oh shit. So it definitely added to the tension. The waypoint system was really good. It just everything for a game that's 12 years old. I can't believe how well it's aged.
Yes.
There's little bits and pieces that are just like, ooh, that was a little janky.
There's also like you can tell like they were going for the no loading screen.
Yeah,
they tried
because there's elevators and the train, and so like.
But but like, so other than the elevators, it's like the train will instantly load you to the next spot.
True.
Which which was kind of crazy. When you go into the main menu and press continue, it instantly loads you, which is crazy. And I guess they do that with the long EA intro, which is unskippable. And at the very least, they use that unskippable time to just go ahead and start loading up your most recent save file, which is that was really cool.
Yeah.
If you look back at 2008 and think in that mindset, think of a game from 1996, which would have been 12 years before that. Think how well that game would have aged at that time versus how well this game has aged today.
Yeah.
And it's wild. There, like a couple little janky spots, which I'm guessing they ran out of time to keep polishing, but they got all the important stuff right. And man, yeah, I had a really fun time with this. I played on PC on Steam using a controller. Graphically, sound, gameplay, just all across the board. I had such a good time.
Yeah. What would you give it on your 10-point scale?
9 out of 10.
Dang.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah, so I played it on Xbox One via backwards compatibility. I also got the little EA access subscription to play it, which is going to be part of Game Pass soon, which is awesome. I'm the same as you, Austin. I absolutely loved it as well. I love like the atmosphere, the weapons, the HUD, the upgrades, like all of it. I thought it was scary, but not too scary because you had the weapons. You could always like fight. Some parts were like a bit repetitive, like what you were talking about going back and forth. And some of the puzzles I was really frustrated with because it wasn't very clear what you needed to do. Man, so I ran into, a couple things. Did you play the basketball?
Oh, yeah.
Prog, did you play it? The basketball game?
I started and I was like, what am I doing? I just left.
Did you get all the way to level 5, Austin?
Yeah, I got to level 6.
Level 6, sorry.
And I saw your advice on that, so I didn't continue past that.
I thought it was going to keep going up because I'm like, okay, level 5, level 6. And I thought I had to beat the score for level 6, and I spent so much time. I was so frustrated. And it turns out, like, no, level 6 is just like your own high score that you keep beating. So I like restarted so much to just like try to beat I had like 39, and then I ended up getting like 41 points at the end. And yeah, that was a bit frustrating because I just didn't know. And the reason why I did that was because the lockers would open up.
Mm-hmm. They give you rewards for each level you complete.
Yeah, but they all didn't open up. And so that's why I'm like, I need to keep going. But maybe the only thing I can think of is maybe if you're on easy mode, like they're all open or something. I don't know. Or maybe they just don't open at all. They did do a cool thing where whenever you return to certain areas, things that were locked are now unlocked.
Mm-hmm.
So you get them, which I thought was really nice. I upgraded my suit first all the way. It's something like I always do in games. I always go for health first, and armor. And that was good. And everything seemed fine. And then I started to have to fight against like really tough enemies. And I told myself, like, I'm not leveling up my guns until I level up my suit 100%. And I started to run out of ammo. I also bought every gun, which was expensive. And I only ended up using the initial gun, the plasma cutter, the line gun, the flamethrower, which I used on the little guys. And then there's like one gun that's like just like a super strong like rifle.
Is it the force rifle?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Okay.
And I used that. I loved using like the plasma cutter, so I actually, once I was able to, I focused on upgrading that a lot because I just like really liked it until I got to a point where I'm like, oh, this is good. Then I went for the line gun. But like, I got to a part because of the way I chose where I was running out of ammo and I wasn't able to fight things. And I actually ran into like an interesting situation, and the devs, like, I feel like they really thought this through. I had no ammo at all, I went into a room and there was people I had to kill, like quite a bit. And there was actually like that. There's a guy in there who, that's like a lot stronger than the other guys, necromancer, right? And he's a bit tougher. And the room had ammo for all the guns that I had currently equipped, placed in the room, to where I just had to basically run around and collect ammo. And then when I killed one necromorph, they would drop ammo, pick up that ammo, and then just like keep doing that. And it had like a stasis thing in there too, so I could stasis them and like punch them or stomp them or whatever I needed to do. And so even though it was frustrating, those parts, because I didn't have enough resources, like going into that room, there was enough stuff in there to where I was able to get out. Like I didn't have to reload a save or anything like that. And so that was really appreciated, because I was worried the whole time, like, oh, I'm going to get myself screwed. And the reason why I didn't buy a bunch of ammo was because I was spending it on suit upgrades, and I was buying a lot of power nodes early on.
Oh.
Which I regret doing. Especially at the end, you get a ton of upgrades. At the end of the game, I was like, oh, this is awesome. I have so many nodes and everything. I also kept one node on me at all times, because you need a node to open some doors.
Yeah, and some of the doors are not very rewarding, but some are more, like, especially for areas that you come back to, there's different stuff in there the second time that you come back to the level. Like, if you go back into the node door, you don't have to use another node to do it, which is cool.
Yeah. And I always made sure I opened those. I don't think I unlocked all the guns, even though I bought them all. I must have like missed a blueprint somewhere or something. But
can you unlock them all? Is it like that other game we played that I picked? I can't remember what it's called.
You can get all the guns, but you have to find the blueprints for them to be able to buy them.
Yeah. But yeah, overall for me, like same as you, Austin, like 9 out of 10. I loved it. I feel like it aged really well. The only reason like it's not like a perfect game for me is like, or well, not perfect, but you know, like a masterpiece for me, something that I would put at like a 10 would be that I did not like the scenes where you were on a big gun and you had to shoot asteroids. It was really bad on a controller, like really bad controls.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had to switch to mouse to that for that part.
Did you switch to MrProg for those parts?
No, I just kept doing.
The speed run for that is so weird, because they spawn in the same place, so he would just shoot the place where he knows they're coming from, and they would die before he even got on the screen.
Oh, that's smart. I was spamming towards like, because I lost one time, and then like I'm just gonna spam, and it actually worked.
Yeah, they don't punish you for it at all, which is interesting.
Yeah. So that was our take on Dead Space. Do you guys have anything additional to add?
I hope our next game isn't scary.
I forgot to talk about the sound a bit. Just when y'all brought up the sound design, like that was really well done. Anytime somebody I'd be having a calm moment and somebody would call me on whatever the video chat thing was, and whatever that sound was, were just like, oh my god! And I was more scared by those than by monsters that were popping out. Anytime you'd go out into like, if you get attacked by a monster, it would do these big horns like and it'd be really intense. But then you'd go out into space, and there would be no sound other than Isaac just going.
Yeah.
And and he would, as you would run out of oxygen, he would start to gasp more to kind of let you know. But all of a sudden, you'd be just walking along and something would whack you from behind. It was just like, oh my god! And instead of it being this big sound cue, it was just dead silence, which scared me a lot more.
Yeah, same.
Lots of really cool little things.
Yeah.
And also, I forgot to mention the two bosses in the game were nicely spaced apart and were not letdowns. Like, they were actually interesting, fun bosses, which was cool.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, they definitely were.
Nothing worse than getting a one or two small boss fights and having all of them be disappointing or something like that. So.
Oh yeah. Okay, so that was episode 9, Dead Space. The next 3 games were nominated by me, and they were Undertale, Little Nightmares, and Party Hard. And last I checked, it was Undertale by a huge vote. Let me just triple check here. It looks like Undertale. Yeah. So it looks like we're going to be playing Undertale. Have any of you played it? Probably, I know you may not be a guest on the next episode, but have you played Undertale? Just curious.
I haven't. I've been really wanting to, though.
You should play along. Austin, have you played it?
I've played the first hour or two twice and told myself both times to just go finish it, and both times I just fell off for some reason at like the exact same point.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to finally, like, I have to finish it this time. It's gonna happen. I enjoyed all my time with it, so I don't know why I stopped.
And it's like a cult classic game at this point.
Yeah. Somehow I have avoided getting spoiled on it.
How? I mean, there's not tons of spoilers.
The first video or two that I saw from people that I like to watch at the beginning were just like, hey, you shouldn't watch anything on this game if you haven't played it. Just go play it. I was just like, I'm going to listen to you. So I just haven't watched any videos on it as much as possible.
Mox, have you played it?
I have watched countless just regular playthroughs, and then just way too many speed runs. There's like, I don't even know how many different categories. So let's look it up on speed runs. And I've seen like the top, 3 runs in like every single category. And I have the soundtrack on my regular soundtrack thing. I love Undertale.
Wow, you're a big fan.
Oh, yes. But I have not actually played it, so.
Until now. So, so thank you everyone for joining. The stream will be on November 8th at 2 o'clock Eastern. Some other time zone. MrProg, thank you so much for being our guest, man.
Thanks for having me. Playing Dead Space.
Appreciate you being here.
Yeah. Is there anything you would like to plug before we head off?
Sure. I mean, I mentioned this in my intro, but I'm actually creating a website for video game tracking. So you can like leave ratings, reviews, make lists, kind of like a little social media site. That sounds interesting. It's called backlog.com without the E in the end, though.
Backlog.com without the E.
Indeed.
And we'll have a link in the YouTube description.
Yeah, absolutely. Austin, thank you for joining.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
And Mox, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Even though you didn't play it, thank you for joining.
That's fine. I still did everything else. I know everything about the lore.
And MrProg, thank you again.
Of course.
I'm Tyler, and this was episode 9 of Video Game Club Dead Space, and we're out.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.